Welcome back. And now we'll begin the second part of the forum featuring the candidates for the 6th State Representative District. They are Democrat Joseph R. Fisher, Democrat Natalie Price. Also on the ballot is Republican Brent M. Larkin, who is not here this evening. We begin the opening statements with Mr. Fisher.
Hi, my name is Joseph Fisher. I'm a longtime Royal Oak resident. Grew up here, went to Shrine Elementary School. I went to Shrine Academy, and then I went to Royal Oak Kimball back when there were 2 high schools. I continued on to Wayne State University, where I received a degree in German, and I've had a lot of opportunities to work in a lot of different fields in my life. I wouldn't be here today if I didn't really care about this specific seat. Currently, I do rideshare. I'm more skilled. I can do things other than rideshare, but that's what I choose to do right now. And I made myself a promise that I wasn't going to do a normal type of job anymore unless it had meaning. And this is definitely something that has meaning to me. I see a fellow high school alum in this room who followed a similar path, and that inspires me a bit too. I hope we get to talk about some of the things I didn't hear questions asked about tonight, and look forward to meeting all of you.
Thank you. Ms. Price.
Hello, I'm Natalie Price. I am a current state representative. Before that, I was a Berkeley City Council member, a high school teacher, and a stay-at-home mom. I care very much about the future for Michigan, for our kids, to make sure everybody can be successful. As a teacher, I went to Lansing to fight for equitable funding for education and policies that would help attract and retain the best and the brightest teachers. As a former council member, I went to Lansing to fight for better revenue sharing, make sure that municipalities are able to enforce laws and have municipal control. And as a mom, I care about keeping our kids safe, making sure that we are supporting policies to reduce gun violence, ensuring access to reproductive care, and making sure that our kids have a future here in Michigan where they can live, succeed, and raise their own families someday. Thank you.
Thank you. This is the part for the questions, and first question, we will start with Mr. Fisher. What can you do to continue revenue sharing to the cities without cutting services?
Well, I think we need to make more options available for municipalities to realize tax revenues in additional ways into what they already are. Personally, I've been doing some research into whether or not it's legal to place a additional tax on alcohol sales in a municipality. I think some municipalities around here could benefit from that. If that were able to be done, I would support doing that in the legislature. And it all depends on the community. They can, choose to seek revenue off, activities that definitely incur them costs.
Thank you, Ms. Price.
So coming from local government, I knew that Michigan was ranked dead last in terms of state support for municipalities. It's vital that we are meeting our constitutional requirement and giving the cities the resources that they need to deliver essential services to residents like public safety, clean water, library, parks and rec, all the things that we rely on and that make our communities great.
Thank you, Anna. This is going to be a 2-minute question, and it will be the same as before. How do you improve public safety and handle the gun violence in the state? And we'll start with Ms. Price.
So the first time with the Democratic trifecta, a control of state government, we have done many things to improve safety in the state, including supporting our cities, our municipal, our public safeties, our state police, our sheriff's departments. We're giving them policies that help them do their jobs, and we're giving them the resources that they need to do them well. One of the things that our state and our country faces is the threat of gun violence. And in the state legislature, we have passed 3 major gun violence prevention packages of bills. I was a proud co-sponsor of the safe storage bill that requires parents to lock their guns away from their kids. We also, as Chair Woodward discussed, passed the red flag laws or extreme risk protection orders, which allow law enforcement or family to petition the court to temporarily remove weapons from somebody who poses immediate risk to themselves or others. And then we require now universal background checks. So those are 3 packages that have made a huge difference. We already see lives being saved. We hear reports from our sheriffs and our police chiefs that they're using those tools often to make sure that we are reducing risk and saving lives. I couldn't be more proud to be a key part of getting those packages across the finish line and setting an example for what other states can do in this space.
Thank you. Next question, we will start with Mr. Fisher. Some communities have decent public transportation. How can you make it better for anyone?
Well, do we want to talk about answer the last question first?
Yes.
On gun violence?
No, oh, yeah, I'm sorry. That was my mistake. Gun violence first.
Hi, yeah. As far as gun violence goes, it's obviously a very serious issue considering what happened in Rochester just recently. But let's look at this situation. It's a guy with no previous criminal record. I don't know if any kind of gun control can really stop an anomaly like that, other than getting rid of guns. I'm not opposed to people who want to severely limit firearms use, ownership, but as long as it's done properly and with the consent of voters, I, commend my state representative here for, sponsoring the safe storage law. It's very important. I think we have a great set of laws in place here, and if people have more ideas on additional things we can do, I'm always all ears, but we have to deal with the very reality that as long as there will be guns, there will be gun violence. So whatever we can do to limit the number of guns would be ideal.
Thank you. And the next question, we will start with Mr. Fisher. What qualities and experience do you bring to this office?
I have been to many different countries. I speak a second language, German. I studied over there for a year. I've worked in many different fields. There was a time when I worked for a company down in Maryland, and if I wanted to, I could have sent a notification to your cell phone if you had the Fox 2 Detroit app on your phone saying that the world was going to end. I could do that. Isn't that absurd? And I think too many of our politicians don't actually know what's going on behind the scenes, the grease, the gears, what the people are actually saying in the back of the office place, what the procedure says to do and what the employees are actually doing, how to speak in the language to people in different fields, make things get going, get them in motion. When you know how to speak the jargon of many different fields, it allows you to communicate effectively with a bunch of people, and I would consider myself fairly multidisciplinary in my education.
Thank you. Ms. Price.
So as I said before, being a former teacher, a mom, and a council member, I think those experiences all are very relevant. But the biggest qualification, I believe, is the last year and a half that I've served. I've learned so much about how to be effective in state government. My areas of influence, kind of areas of specialty, are mostly on appropriations on the budget side of Lansing. I serve on the committees that manage the budget for our K-12 schools, higher ed schools, Department of Health and Human Services. And I requested being on those committees because I knew from my experience in local government that we need to put our money where our values are. We need to invest in the things that we say that we care about. I've learned how to effectively balance a budget, create a revenue stable state, and invest in the things that we all care about. And that is what I bring to the table and what I hope to continue to do.
Thank you. Next question, we will start with Ms. Price. And I'm going to give 2 minutes on this one because it's a senior citizens question, and it covers us all. There are a lot of seniors living in the area. Where are they going to live, and how can they take care of their needs? And the other one is, what senior services can be offered by the state?
Yes, so I'm so grateful to live in a state with such a robust aging population. I mean, we all hope to be there one day. We all hope to have the supports to be able to age in place with dignity. It's what everyone deserves. That budget that I serve on, Department of Health and Human Services, manages a lot of the money that the state offers to organizations and departments that support our seniors. Everything from making sure that we are providing affordable housing, public transit, direct care workers for when we all have that point in our life where we need some more support, making sure that seniors are able to live as independently as possible. We also find that that's the most fiscally responsible thing to do. When we're able to give support so that people can age in place, then we save the state money. So I am looking forward to continuing that work and to advocating for extra supports for seniors that I hope that I will have one day when I am ready to retire and be at home and be able to be there independently as long as I can. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher.
I have a lot vested in this because I'm divorced and I will definitely die here. I want to make sure that I have housing that's affordable. I live downtown right now. It's expensive, but I like to live downtown because I can walk to my doctor, because I can walk to my bank, because I can walk to the grocery store. What this city here that we're in right now has become in the past 30 years, it's unrecognizable. And I think it's important that we have this discussion because our district is a much more urban district than it was before. And the polity needs to be repolled on what kind of concerns concern them. And I think that I bring to the table some outside of the box thinking on how to work outside the frameworks that are prescribed to us and bring us solutions.
Okay. The next question, I believe, will start with Mr. Fisher. Too many people can't count on DTE or the communities. How can other providers, how can you help people with their power and other external forms of power?
Well, if elected, I definitely would try to get a bill that would require most new construction to require one renewable element, whether that be wind or solar. That could be a single solar panel. It could be a single wind thing. As long as it's making some impact, we're making progress. And I think that's a key thing that speaks to what you just asked right there.
Thank you, Ms. Price.
Yes, my home does not have power. It hasn't since 9:54 last night. And I think many of us in this area can relate to having power outages too often. For me, my family, it's a pretty minor inconvenience, right? It's throwing out a fridge of food and sleeping in the basement where it's cool enough. For a lot of families, though, it's more than that. Medicine that needs to be refrigerated, assisted devices that need to be powered. It is so important that we are investing in a reliable grid and reducing our dependence on unsustainable fuel sources. So some of the things that I have championed and will continue to champion are more accountability for our utilities, making sure that we are investing in solar and enabling the ability to invest in community solar here in Michigan, which would allow everybody to use solar, and also lifting the current cap on distributed generation so that folks that are investing in solar can also share that with the grid. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question, we'll start with Ms. Price. How can you improve the ethics in the State House?
Just 1 minute for that. So when I served on council, we had really basic and important rules regarding ethics. Well, first of all, we were all subject to FOIA, which required a lot of transparency. And then if we had a conflict, like we were financially benefiting from something that we had to vote on, we had a procedure where we had to disclose that conflict, and then the other council members could vote on whether or not we should abstain. It was very clear and transparent, and there was a process. We don't have that in the state legislature. We have a little more than we did before. We did increase some disclosure. We need to now disclose yearly our sources of income, our spouses' jobs, but pretty minimally. We've got a lot more work to do. I recently proudly co-sponsored a group of bills called the BRIGHT Act, and I know I'm low on time, so getting through all of the things that the BRIGHT Act do would be tough, but BRITE, it's for transparency, it's for disclosure. It's very important that we do more in requiring that level of ethics and transparency from our politicians. Thank you.
Mr. Fisher.
I mean, in a perfect world, we'd have real-time transparency. And I bet there are some people I bet there are some people at an accounting firm who could tell us that. Personally, I've never been in office before. My attachment to electoral politics stems back to a campaign I worked on in 2010 for a guy named Aaron Bailey. And boy, did we knock doors. We knocked doors on doors, on doors, on doors, on doors. Personally, I don't have the physical ability to do that. And I don't have that big of a team behind me. I like to believe in a world where people do the research, and make their vote based on that. I'm not going to throw stones. I'll let the party leaders take the lead on where we want to go with ethics questions.
Thank you. Next question, we'll start with Mr. Fisher. How can the state reach its climate goals?
I think my answer from before answers that, as well as, I've got a plug-in EV. I think we should do everything we can to encourage this. For example, there's a project being discussed in downtown Royal Oak for an 11-story building. It's requesting exemption of 81 parking spaces. I can maybe get on with that if that same developer wants to put a bunch of EV charging stations in Royal Oak. There's got to be some give back. We need to make developers and companies, have a buy-in too. We need to make it easier for people to have EVs, not harder.
Thank you, Ms. Price.
Could you repeat the question?
How can the state reach its climate goals?
Yeah, so I was part of this legislation that set clear goals with the the clean energy bills, Clean Energy Now, which require the state to transition fully to clean energy by 2040. There's a lot that goes into that. Investing in renewable resources is a big part. Investing in the infrastructure that supports things like electric vehicles is a part as well. This is going to require a bit of a shift in culture, but by weatherizing our homes and investing in clean energy, those are the commitments that we need to make. Again, putting our money where our values are to reach our goals together. Thanks.
Okay, next question, we will start with Ms. Price. Some communities in Michigan have decent transit, others don't. How can we make it better for everyone?
Grateful for Oakland County and the huge step forward Oakland County has made, setting an example for the rest of the state of where we can go with transit. Right now, the state legislature is facing a decision about how to invest in economic development. We are making the decision of whether or not to extend a major $650 million annual investment into corporations using corporate income tax credits. And one of the proposals that I have supported is to do a more diverse way of supporting the recruitment of corporations, not simply giving them corporate tax cuts, but investing in mass transit, housing, and placemaking. This proposed budget would give an additional $250 million a year, dedicated, earmarked for transit. That would also allow us to take advantage of many federal grants, allow us to qualify for that, and get these resources out to all of our counties to be able to make the same kind of moves forward that we have here in Oakland County.
Thank you. Next question, we will start with Ms. Price. I'm sorry.
Do I get my answer?
Certainly.
Please repeat the question.
Some communities in Michigan don't have decent transit. How can you make it better for everyone?
Well, I think it's a comprehensive thing, right? I mean, you can't just have one city with transit if there's no transit in other places. I lived in Germany. The reason it works so well there is because you've got a very dense bus system grafted onto the rail system with times where, you know, you'll get a train a bus 5 times an hour and a train 3 times an hour. Until we reach those kinds of frequencies, which I think that's what we need to do here, and it involves funding across the board. I remember a specific instance years ago when I had to go to a doctor's appointment in Bloomfield Hills, I believe it was, and they had opted out of the SMART system, so I had to get dropped off a mile away and walk back. I agree with what the previous person for County Commission said. We do need a better way to get to the airport. I actually know a lot about, you know, grading and stuff like that, how to speak the language of the engineers and know what's actually needed to build a successful system.
Thank you. We will start this with Mr. Fisher. Both chambers of the State House recently passed legislation stripping county boards of canvassers of their investigative power. Is the Michigan electoral process compromised with reasonable checks and balances are removed?
Me first?
Yes,
Okay.
Mr. Fisher.
My dad is an election worker, and he loves doing it. I'll probably sign up for that job one day because the pool is looking older and older, and not that that's a problem. It's a problem because younger people aren't interested. I can't tell you how many of my own peers do not even care that I'm doing this, and it upsets me. I'm not mad at them. I can understand why they don't care anymore. They want engaging ideas. They don't want to hear about what territory is being held. They want to hear about what territory is going to be taken next.
Thank you. Ms. Price.
Yes, we know that we have safe and secure elections, and I think it's important for folks to understand that and to trust in the process and participate in the process. Again, in the first Democratic trifecta in 40 years, we've done a number of things to protect and uplift and increase access to voting and to secure our process. Just today, we voted on the requirement that somebody can't be on the State Board of Canvassers if they've been convicted of tampering with elections. There are some sort of commonplace protections there that I support and want to make sure, again, that people can trust the process so that they will step up and participate, because when more people participate in democracy, it gets stronger.
Thank you. We will start with Ms. Price. If elected, what 2 issues do you hope to accomplish this term?
I would be remiss if I left being here at Royal Oak and not talked about my bill related to updating the vehicle code. This is not an issue that I anticipated stepping up and spending a lot of time on, but I think my work here shows that I've been really listening to my constituents and what they care about. Up in this area of my district, most people, when I ask them what is the issue that affects you the most, this time of year, it's noise on Woodward. So I have crafted updated language for the vehicle code, been generating the support needed to work it through the process. It got successfully out of committee, and now we're working toward getting it through the House floor. The goal is to get it through this term, but if I need to be working on it next term, it will continue to be a priority. I know it's important to my constituents. We need to give our law enforcement the tools that they're asking for to enforce the vehicle code as it was designed. I also care very much about protecting access to abortion care. I serve on the Progressive Women's Caucus. We have more work to do to make sure that abortion tools and care is accessible to everyone who needs it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Fisher.
I'm probably going to cram in more than 2 just because I feel there's a lot of important stuff we haven't talked about, like Medicaid, education reform, private prisons in the state of Michigan, and something that I really want to be a champion of, an alcohol opt-out. Like with casinos, people have gambling problems, people have alcohol problems. At a casino, you can say, cut me off. We need a good way for people to allow themselves to cut themselves off. What I'd want to do is I want to have anybody be able to go into the Secretary of State's office and get a new ID free of charge that says do not serve. And I think that would go a great distance in combating alcoholism in our community, which contributes to a whole bunch of other problems, including gun violence and just about everything else.
Thank you. We will start with Mr. Fisher. And we are going to have to cut this session shorter at 8:50. So right now I'm going to give each candidate 5 minutes to discuss whatever is on their mind at the current time, as long as you keep it relevant to issues. Mr. Fisher, you may be first.
Thank you. Now I've got 5. I can be a little more, when I'm up against a clock like that, it's a little hard to speak more naturally. Medicaid, when I say Medicaid, I mean everybody who can't afford it needs access to quality talk therapy. And I don't think a lot of the stuff that's out there that calls itself quality talk therapy is quality talk therapy. People need real, qualified talk therapy. This is how we stop problems before they begin. This is how we stop substance abuse. This is how we stop all sorts of addiction. It stops problems in homes. It stops parental violence. It's a big deal that we have it in there. It should be made available to everyone. I think that one of the things that didn't get discussed here that's extremely important is AI. AI is going to be, by the time whoever wins, by the time our first term as this district is drawn, the world is going to be a radically different place. And I know that sounds crazy, but it's true. It's growing very fast. And ultimately, what I see right now is I see a landscape of tech companies dictating to us how things are going to be. And we just have to accept it. We can't combat that unless we have a defensive approach and that we have stops in place to make sure AI never gets put in charge of making certain types of decisions in law enforcement, in healthcare, et cetera. Anywhere you might not want it to be used. I can think of a lot of people that would question what the AI might say about them and what they should do or how they should be treated. Again, another huge issue for me. This really upset me the other day. Is I was watching John Oliver, and I was watching a segment about private prisons, and I said to myself, we've got Democrats in the House, we've got Democrats in the Senate, we've got a Democratic governor. We don't have those, do we? Alexa, how many private prisons are there in Michigan? Michigan has 6 private prisons. 6 private prisons. Unacceptable. Absolutely, I want to curse, but I won't. It's nonsense. It's not how we should be treating people. It's beneath who we should be as people. I don't want to be party to profiting off of other people's pain and suffering. And I hope everybody else here doesn't want to be either. I understand budget constraints, but it does not matter. It's not a means to an end. I also think we should really look at our school system. I applaud my opponent for being a teacher, and I think in the schools, a lot of people pass blame around, and teachers get a lot of undeserved blame. But everybody is pointing fingers, and the parents, the kids themselves, and I think maybe none of the parties is truly at fault. Maybe it's just the way we do education here. And last I checked, education is largely a state matter as far as curriculum goes and how it's organized. I've seen programs work in other countries that are the standard where kids are tracked better earlier in life so that they are more aligned with jobs that are more suitable to their personalities, and they'll have experience before they go out into the working world. I do rideshare for a living, and I drive aimless U's around all day, and it disturbs me. That needs to be, if we had stuff like real apprenticeships when people are 15 and 16, and we also need to bring employers into that because employers, frankly, just don't care about people like they used to. I really love this place. I mean, I grew up at 12 in Washington, went to Shrine Elementary. There's another guy who grew up in Royal Oak, went to Shrine Elementary, and then he went to Royal Oak Public Schools. And then he married Jane Fonda and stood on a tank in Vietnam. It was kind of weird. I'm not going to do all that. But Tom Hayden, I look to him for a lot of my inspiration. It's weird. Conventions this year in Chicago. Strange parallels. Don't worry, I won't be there.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Ms. Price.
Thank you. I'd love to share a little bit about why I decided to step up and run. I moved to Berkeley in 2015 with 2 little kids. I had to leave my job teaching high school English because my salary was not enough to cover childcare for 2 kids and rent. So I left teaching before I planned. We moved in with my in-laws for a few years in Ann Arbor. And then after I brought my 2 little kids to Berkeley looking for community. I tried to sign up for the parent-taught class at the local community center, but there wasn't a teacher. So I offered to teach. I said I taught high school students, toddlers, can't be so different, right? Lesson plan, create a space, and build community, and that's what I did. So making a space for caregivers, grandparents, moms, dads, nannies to come and connect, share resources, share experiences, was very meaningful to me. I extended that into creating a free public play space in Berkeley called the Backyard Playroom for every kid under 5 with their caregiver to come and connect and play for free. That got me connected with city resources. I organized a diaper drive for Judson Center and raised over 50,000 diapers over 5 years, and learned about resources and how we can step up and connect with our unique abilities and interests to issues that matter. That gave me the opportunity to run for Berkeley City Council. On Berkeley City Council, I was very proud of my work to expand our non-discrimination policy, to ban conversion therapy, to increase the minimum wage for city employees, for some making as low as $8.50. As a parent-taught teacher, I made $10 an hour. Wasn't enough to sustain a living in our area. So increasing it to $15 an hour or $40,000 a year for a basic minimum wage. And then those are some of the values when I had the opportunity to step up and serve in Lansing. I could take those values of community building and what I learned about education from a teacher's perspective. What makes a great school? What helps teachers feel supported and show up there in Lansing? I said before, most of my committees are budget committees. So I serve on that school aid budget. We are responsible for funding public schools in Michigan. We don't do enough. We're currently underfunding public schools by between $3.5 and $4.5 billion, depending on the report. There's no question that we are underfunding our schools. So what can we do? Well, we can invest at least the money we have in equitable ways, making sure that the kids who need the most support are getting more support. We made huge strides last year in terms of fully funding special ed, increasing funding for at-risk students, increasing funding for districts that face greater needs. Unfortunately, because we still rely on property taxes for the infrastructure of buildings, we have a lot of work to do there. And I have a unique perspective where I serve on that school aid budget committee, and I also serve on a committee called Joint Capital Outlay. I'm the chair of that committee. It's joint because it's with representatives and senators, so we're already working together with 2 chambers, making decisions about major infrastructure projects in Michigan. Right now, our scope is limited to universities, colleges, and community colleges, but Minnesota has showed us a way forward how you can use that tool to invest in K-12 buildings as well. That is a model that I'm studying to see, can we fund the infrastructure of schools in a more equitable way using the state's bond rating, bond cap, which is very high, which we've earned and we need to be responsible with, but investing in our schools in those responsible ways, which our kids deserve. We also, Detroit, half of my current district is Northwest Detroit, and you may have heard Detroit graduates won a lawsuit against the state. Actually, it was a settlement for $94 million because they were graduating and didn't know how to read. I mean, absolutely heartbreaking. How do you put a price on that? But years of just the state refusing to pay the settlement. Finally, last year, we not only paid the settlement to Detroit, but we used stakeholder feedback from teachers and parents and students into how best invest those $94 million into literacy in Detroit, and we delivered. Personally, I advocated for and brought back $5 million for one elementary school in my district in Detroit, $6.5 for another. These are schools that have major infrastructure projects that needed to be done, and I went and made my case to my colleagues and brought that money back to my district. My district looks a little bit different now. It's now all in Oakland County, but I will continue to show up, look for the needs, and step up and serve. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes the question segment. We will now have closing statements in reverse order, and we will start with Ms. Price.
Thank you. Grateful for the League of Women Voters for organizing this event, for providing the opportunity for interested citizens to pay attention to who's running for office in these races. I always look forward to the League of Women Voters Forum, and I feel fortunate to have the opportunity to participate tonight. One thing that I've learned being a state representative over the last year and a half is that we need to communicate. Communication is so important with my colleagues on both sides of the aisle, on both chambers, with all the branches, with the exec, with the Supreme Court members, with my constituents, with the staff. Being able to sit down and connect and communicate with each other helps us all do better, move forward. And my ask of anybody watching is to reach out and communicate with me. You can find all of my contact information at votenatalieprice.com, my email, my phone number. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions that weren't answered tonight or if you want to learn more about me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher.
If chosen to represent the Democratic Party in this upcoming election in November, I guarantee you I will give it 110%, as cliche as that sounds. I don't know any else how to put it. I'm of the earth. I wouldn't go out and do anything like this for any other reason. When I was married, I could have gotten into politics in Virginia, and I would have had a lot of support and time and money, but I didn't because that place didn't mean anything to me. I don't see myself ever doing this anywhere else. And I feel like I really know the lay of the land. I also think that some of my ideas can really push the state forward and serve as an example for other states. If we think we need to strengthen abortion rights, then let's make an amendment that other states can sign up for too. If enough states ratify it, it becomes enshrined in the Constitution.
Thank you. The League of Women Voters would like to thank the audience, the candidates, and WROK TV for making this forum possible. This presentation is copyrighted 2024 by the League of Women Voters. All rights are reserved. Any recording of this forum can only be shown in its entirety. Rebroadcast times of this forum will be on the LWV website and on WROK Royal Oak. The League of Women Voters is funded by contributions from concerned citizens and businesses. Our membership is open to men and women over the age of 18. Remember to vote on August 8, 2024. Democracy is not a spectator sport. Thank you and good night.